our dear panelists, the organizing team, and student leaders from all over the country. A good afternoon. This is St. Henry's College Kitovu, and I'm Peter Clever Chaja. So, all through this morning, we have been told how bad drugs are. We have been told how drugs can devastate our nation, and particularly our generation. We realize that our elders, Madame Anne, plus her colleagues, are going to fade out, and it is our generation that is going to come up. But we realized also that our generation, 24 to about 17 years, are the ones who use drugs most. And then, what is our generation going to be like if at all we are using drugs? We are being called leaders of tomorrow, but we are the very people who are using drugs. We've been showed how bad drugs are, and it is upon this, it is upon the gravity of drugs that we are supposed to thrive. We are supposed to spring up and go against drugs, or else our generation is going to have very many problems. Apparently, drugs are a problem basically to you because it is you who is coming in tomorrow. So what we are here to do at St. Henry's College Kitovu is to bring up the best of measures. The best way we can go against drugs, drug and substance abuse in schools. So basically, to start with, we need to look at emphasizing awareness, stressing awareness, in schools. We are really grateful. We are really grateful to Madame Anne because this is not the first time she's doing it. She has done it. This is the second time, and I believe she's going to keep doing it. So I request that we applaud her in gratitude for what she has done. So when we take on awareness, when someone gets to know how bad drugs are, when someone gets to know the negativities of taking on drugs, we are going to see people do away with drugs, and we are going to have a better generation. I believe that we are all looking at having a better generation. So how are we going to take on the sensitization? How are we going to emphasize the sensitization? Apparently, this is a national conference, but there are very many people from Gulu that have not been able to make it here. There are very many people from Masaka that have not been able to make it here. So Madame Anne plus all the people in this sector, if at all we went deeper to Masaka, if at all we went deeper to Gulu, if at all we went deeper to the west, we would be able to reach more people, and in that case, we would be having better impact. And so we shall have done away with drugs simply because we have made people aware of how bad drugs are. So still in the line of sensitization and causing awareness, we as student leaders, we can do simple things. In your schools, I don't really believe that we all have talking compounds, or maybe what you have in the corner of a certain compound is don't make noise. But if at all we chose to put up messages that are talking against drugs, we are going to see people do away with drugs. So you can simply lobby for such simple things. When you sit in meetings with administrators, tell them that we could do this and this is going to help us in such and such a manner. So I believe that once we choose to emphasize and stress sensitization and awareness against drugs, we shall be able to see people do away with drugs, and we shall have the best of generations. I'll beg to submit at that, and I let my brothers proceed. But together, we are fighting drugs. Thank you so much.
A lot has been said. I wouldn't love to go through protocol. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ambere Felix, representing as well St. Henry's College Kitovu. Our theme for today, stand against drug abuse. What can we do as leaders to make sure we help out our schools to eradicate this vice in our schools? As student leaders, we are supposed to foster a positive environment in our schools. Let there be activeness, active participation in our schools. Let students not have times when they are bored. Let students not have times when they are stressed. How do you do this? Encourage the administration to bring out activities, sports, encourage people to take on their hobbies. How do you make sure people are not in depression? Because most of the time we realize that depression causes people to take these drugs. They think that the drugs will help them do away with the depression. There is a lot of bullying in our schools, and these are small things that we as leaders can take on. If there is no bullying in our school, if there is no bullying in your school, trust me, there's no way these students are going to be depressed. As leaders, some of us sometimes look like lightning and thunder. You should be approachable. Students voted for you because they trusted that you could be approachable enough to them. They could come to you and open up to you. Give an example. Someone is using a drug, is abusing a drug. If they want to do away with the drug, but their leader is not approachable enough, they will fail to do away with that vice. So as leaders, a lot has been said to us. Let us open up to the people that we serve. Let us be those leaders that we are elected for. This vice, we can do away with it, and our country shall be a peaceful place to live in. To our schools, we should encourage our schools that checkups, they've said the checkup should not be the points where we go to, but we're already in that situation. What should we do? Should we just let people be there because we don't want them to act like prisoners? No. Let us strengthen the checking points. Let us strengthen the way we check the students when they're reporting. There are very many drugs that I've mentioned, cookies, very many ways, and we students, student leaders know those ways, how our fellow students hide drugs. So let us open up to administration and help them identify those very students that bring in drugs and spread the vice. I would like to speak a lot. A lot has been mentioned, and I know you have picked a lot from this conference. I would like to thank the people who organized this conference, that let this not be the end of it. Next year we should come back, more leaders should come back, and we should spread the gospel. Thank you very much.
The Lord is faithful. Good afternoon to you, dear ladies and gentlemen. In as much as my friends and comrades have spoken about what we as student leaders can do, I want to think that each school that is here represented has come with at least a teacher or two. And these teachers, I would like to think, are parents. The very organizers of today's initiative, I want to think, are also parents. And that is why, in as much as others matter, I want to think and contribute that the involvement of parents in the fight and stand against drug abuse is quite pivotal. I want to understand that when we involve parents in such a fight, you see, a cross-section of us here, I would like to believe, would love to have, would actually consent to the fact that we have our parents as our very own role models. And that means that once we involve our parents, our own parents, in such a fight, it would be much more better for us and much faster for us to win. You must realize that as a parent, as teachers or as prefects, we can encourage our school administrations to increase on the number of parent-teacher meetings so that they can teach, or we can teach our parents on how to identify the signs of drug and substance misuse and menace. I want to think that when our parents recognize this much faster, they can be much more readily available for us and aid us in extirpating this scourge. I also want to think that if we have a lot of parental involvement, we can teach these parents how to talk to their students or how to talk to their children. Because it is for a fact that when a parent, this is a fact, that when a parent talks to the child about the evils and consequences of using drugs or abusing substance, it is for a fact that that child is, or that the risk or probability of that child doing that drug is going to drop to 42%. That is a very good 58% drop in the possibility. That is a very good measure. I want to also think that as we talk about the causes involving the cause of bad peer influence, I would like to note that parents could be the better people or the better stand or the upper hand that we have at solving such. I want to think that if parents took it upon themselves to know what kind of friends their children have, or could decide for their children or advise their children on what kind of friends they have, it would be much better. And that is why I think that their involvement is quite pivotal in this fight. I also want to think that the part of counseling and guidance is also quite significant. You see, the more we train counselors on how to identify and help the people that are battling drug use or drug menace, I want to think that the the more counselors, the more trained counselors we have, the better or the upper hand we stand, the upper hand we stand against this fight, in this fight, dear ladies and gentlemen. I also want to think that if these schools or if our schools offered confidential counseling services to students, it would be much better for the students to come out and talk to these counselors because they are sure that that information is not going to leak anywhere and they think they can trust their understanding counselors who are rather approachable. I also want to think that if our schools, dear ladies and gentlemen, invited external organizations with relevant expertise, for example, the Drugs Hapana initiative, to teach us about the evils of drug misuse and drug menace or substance abuse, I would like to think that it would be much better and it would give us an upper hand in winning this fight. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I want to think that in our schools, we may all have counselors, but I'm not sure that the ratio of counselor to students is a good one. You may find that in a school we have only 3 counselors that are going to be providing services to up to 1,500 students. That is 1 counselor to 500 students. I want to think that those counselors are overworked. And that is why it is my plea that we as the prefects talk to our administration and make sure that they increase the number of counselors that are going to talk to our students, to our fellow students, and aid them in fighting and battling this scourge. We must learn that all through today, we have been told about the availability of drugs and how readily they are there for us to take, to buy, to access, dear ladies and gentlemen. And that is why I suggest that the aggressive extinction, dear ladies and gentlemen, quote me right, aggressive extinction of drug sources would be much, much important in today's fight. I want to think that if we identified, thanks to the community, the places where these drugs are grown, especially the weed, the hemp plants, or those agricultures that are grown in gardens, if the community can help us identify where they are and have them uprooted and banned, that would be a very good measure, especially for those areas that are close to schools, now that we shall have crippled the whole dealing system. I want to think that if the community involved themselves in this fight, it would also be a much bigger boost. Because I think that if the community reported to the police all the people that they think or suspect to be dealers in drugs and maybe may cause harm to us, these people can be attended to or arrested and taken out of community to keep our students safe, dear ladies and gentlemen. Now, like we have talked all today, a lot of the best strategies have been mentioned and discussed, among which were creating awareness, parental involvement, developing and enforcing school policies like random tests and checks. And we believe that once adopted and implemented, it would be a very relevant case in today's talk. I also want to think that, as well elaborated before, drug and substance menace has got a number of externalities and regrettable consequences. Uganda is known to be the world's youngest population. At least by 2016, Uganda's population, the average age, we were the youngest. And of this population, the young people contribute at least 70%. That means that if we directed such a harm, such an evil, the devil himself, to these people, to these 70% of our own population, it would be crippling the world for Uganda in the near days. Because we know...
Centenaries, we just put it in a sentence to summarize it.
Yes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us all stand against drug abuse. I implore us all to take heed of what has been discussed before us today and not to be selfish with this information, because maybe not many of us today need this kind of information as remedy. Many of us here are consuming this information just as caution. There are many students out there in our different schools that could need this information as treatment. So let us not be selfish with this kind of information and therefore deliver it on school assemblies and discuss these reports with our teachers when we get back. For God and my country, for greater horizons, Drugs Hapana.
Wow. That is centenaries for you. Thank you so much for that solution-oriented submission.